Hi there, this is Liquid Gold TV, brought to you by Braeburn Whisky. I'm Bryony, and this week we are going to talk about the Luxury Investment Index by Knight Frank and where whisky fits in on that index. We're also going to chat to a musician and have a fab music performance and a current client of Braeburn. So, fill your glass with something special and come and join me. This evening we have Andrew Shirley, editor of Knight Frank's Wealth Report, and in addition to being Knight Frank's head of rural research and the editor of the Wealth Report, Andrew has also led with the thought leadership publication for the ultra high net worth individuals at Knight Frank, and he also compiles the Knight Frank Luxury Investment Index, which we are going to talk a lot about because it's become very interesting that it now includes whisky as well as other assets such as classic cars and other valuable alternative investments. So hello Andrew, thank you for joining us.
Oh, hi Bryony, lovely to be with you.
And lovely to be with you too. As the creator of the Knight Frank Luxury Investment Index, so what inspired you to create this index, and how long have you been with Knight Frank? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I joined Knight Frank about 12 years ago, a little bit more than 12 years ago. And one of the first big projects I took hold of was a magazine we produced for our clients, our ultra high net worth clients, called the Wealth Report. And after a few years of doing that, it quickly became apparent that as well as property, they were also interested in these luxury collectibles like classic cars, art, and all of those sorts of things. So as the report, we kind of consider it thought leadership. So we thought it'd be fun to create this luxury investment index to go in there. So we're not just talking about property, but we're talking about the other things that they love as well.
So you mentioned there that it's fun and it's interesting just for high net worth individuals to just keep an eye on what's going on with classic collectibles as well as you say, property. But do you think that is there a strong argument for paying attention to when you're thinking about investing in an alternative asset?
Well, it's interesting you say that because as part of our Wealth Report magazine, we do a survey of high net worth wealth advisors around the world. And we ask them, why do your clients collect these luxury investments? And it's still joy of ownership that's the main driver for their collections. But coming up very close behind is their investment potential, and particularly in Asia, in some countries, we actually see investment is the #1 driver behind buying these sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And I think it started after the financial crash in 2008 when people were very much drawn towards tangible asset classes, things that wouldn't suddenly lose their value overnight, like stocks and shares, equities, that kind of thing, and things that you could also enjoy at the same time. So that's when we really started to see the interest in these luxury investments take off.
Well, it must be very useful to have one compiled place that you can see which ones are doing well, performing well, and how that changes over time. Because obviously, as you say, the wealth protection element of actually investing your wealth in an item that isn't likely to drop value quickly is very important. But it also to have one place that you can go that's sort of an authority for having all the lists and you can compare them with previous years must make it very useful for these high net worth individuals. We talk about in the Knight Frank Luxury Index, you've got asset classes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 10, 12 asset classes?
11 now. We introduced handbags this year, actually.
Great. So there are 11 at the moment of these asset classes. Now, what criteria does an asset have to have in order to be classed on the index?
First of all, it has to be widely collectible. We have to feel that it's going to be of something of interest to our clients. And also there has to be a reliable data source to enable us to track its performance. So if there's no data, it's very difficult to say how something has performed. You can't just rely on anecdotal evidence. So that's why we introduced whisky the year before last, because a new index going back 10 years had just been launched that enabled us to track how the value of these expensive, rare Scottish malt whiskies had been performing.
With including luxury assets, tangible assets on an investment portfolio, you've already mentioned that is a more secure investment because of the unlikelihood and the historic figures show that it doesn't just drop in the same way overnight like stocks and shares. So can you develop on that and say why it might be useful to invest in items that you class in the asset classes in the index?
Well, first of all, you've got portfolio diversification, so you're not relying on one particular asset class, and a lot of these asset classes tend to be counter-cyclical. So, for example, when the stock market is going up, you'll sometimes, when the stock market is going down, rather, you'll find that some of these asset classes, like classic cars, going in the opposite direction. So it helps give you that diversification. But I'd just like to come back to that point about joy of ownership. When your equity portfolio is going down, it doesn't give you any pleasure at all. If that work of art hanging on your wall is perhaps a little bit less valuable, you're still looking at it, you're still enjoying it. You can still drive your classic car, or you could still uncap one of your bottles of rare whiskey and enjoy it if things get really depressing. So the luxury investments, they perform more than just one role, which I think is why it's nice, why a lot of people are collecting them.
So, Knight Frank obviously being a property company, why has Knight Frank chosen to publish a report on other kinds of assets to invest in?
I think it's because we don't just see our clients as people who we sell property to, we see them as long-standing partners. So we're interested in helping them with their wider aspirations and interests, and that's what the Wealth Report does. It looks at the big issues that concern them, their families, their investments, that kind of thing. And luxury investments are just another part of their package. It helps us talk to them and engage with them, and shows that we're just not interested in their property needs, but their wider interests.
Well, it's really important when you're dealing with people, which ultimately, you are when you're talking property, whatever you're talking, people, and that's what's at the heart of it. So that makes perfect sense.
It's about people and partnerships. That's what we're all about.
Over the last few years, over the last 10 years, actually, the growth of the index for rare Scottish whisky has increased by a whopping 586%. And that kind of growth it just seems pretty staggering. Is there any other assets on the index that have performed as well as that?
No, Bryony, nothing has done as well as whisky. I always thought classic cars were performing really well, and they're up about 250 or so % over the past 10 years. But then when we introduced whisky, overnight it just beat everything else in the index. So no, nothing seems to be coming close.
Why do you think that is?
I guess it's perhaps a slightly funny turn of phrase, but it's a less liquid market perhaps than the fine wine market or something like that. These rare whiskies were produced so long ago, there's not actually huge supplies of them, so it doesn't take that many more extra buyers in the market to start putting the values upwards.
No, that makes perfect sense, absolutely. Thank you, I just sprung that on you. I just sort of thought, why whisky? So Scotch whisky, obviously we just talked about, has seen this incredible growth, natural growth, indicated by the performance sort of report in your index. Do you see that sort of continuing at the same rate? Do you see it sort of slowing, speeding up? What do you see for whisky over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the demand will still be there. I mean, when we published the figures for the Q1 of this year, the growth was slowing down slightly, but it was still positive. I think people are going to be collecting it. They'll still be as passionate about it as they were, but I think it stands to reason that if something has gone up over 500% in 10 years, it probably can't continue at that rate. So I think we'll see probably slower appreciation, steady appreciation, but the market will still be there, and we'll still see values going up. And of course, there'll still be exciting finds of whisky and casks that haven't been discovered yet that will be coming onto the market, and will keep investors excited.
Are there any particular points of interest that you would draw people's attention to from the Knight Frank's most recent report?
That's a good question. I released it just after Christmas, and a lot's happened. A lot's happened since then. But it was interesting. The theme of this year's Wealth Report was wellness and well-being. And obviously, when I decided on that theme, I had no idea what was going to happen. But I think what we are seeing now is actually people focusing much more on their well-being, their health, exercise, the things that make them happy, green spaces, mental well-being. Obviously, luxury investments tie into those things because they do make you happy. They do give you that feel-good sensation. So I think well-being, probably how people look after themselves, is the key thing that very luckily I concentrated on in this year's Wealth Report.
It sounds like you kind of got a crystal ball there. That's kind of spooky. It's a bit spooky that was what you focused in on. Well, Andrew, Shirley, thank you so much for talking to us. We've been talking about the Knight Frank Index and all of the asset classes on there, particularly seeing how whisky is performing. And I certainly feel like I've learned a huge amount, so thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure, Bryony.
Every show we love to have one of Braeburn's current clients, and this week we have Scott Brown, who is a resident of Islay, so knows all about whiskies, and we have Niall from Braeburn. Hello, Scott.
Hi guys.
Hiya.
Hi, Niall.
How are you today?
Yes, so Scott, could you just tell us a little bit about your life on Islay and your life surrounding whiskey, I suppose?
Yeah, so I've been collecting bottles of whiskey from, I don't know, for years now, and I came across a pop-up on my Facebook and inquired about it with Braeburn Whiskies, and yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting Niall, and I've managed to get myself a wee portfolio going, so yeah.
Fab. Now, Niall, would you like to develop on Scott's portfolio, what he's got and why you thought they'd be suitable for him?
Yeah, so we started Scott's portfolio back in May time, and Scott, in a very quick period of time, has built up a very impressive portfolio, ranging from say 2007 to 2019 casks of whisky. Now he's very well diversified, has some Kalila casks from the island where he's from. He's got some Highland whisky in Ben Nevis, and he's some Glenrothes and Ben Rioch. So Scott's got whisky casks from distilleries all over Scotland, and he's got a very impressive portfolio for such a short space of time.
That's fab, and it's really quick actually, just since May.
Yeah.
That must mean a combination of things, that you are clearly very passionate about whiskey and that Niall is very persuasive.
Yeah, he's very, very, very persuasive. But yeah, no, I've got a major love for whiskey. When I spoke to Niall and the prices of the casks available, I thought, no, I've got to go for this, and fortunately I had money sitting there. I could go ahead and purchase a few casks, and then a couple of weeks later I bought a couple more casks.
Well, in the business that you're in, so you own an Airbnb, do you not, on Islay?
Yeah, so we advertise through Airbnb, yeah, and with Booking.com. This time last year, it's obviously night and day. We were full all summer, even full in December time. People are coming all over the world. We've had someone from every continent stay in our B&B, despite only being open. We only actually opened the doors end of April last year. So yeah, it's really, really popular over here for tourists.
And it's not only the fact that it's beautiful, which it is, but it's obviously a major draw for those international tourists is the whisky festival that happens there and whisky itself.
Yeah, people are booking up now for next year already. The island goes trebles, quadruples in population during the festival, so it does.
And Islay's obviously got a really strong history of distilleries and whisky and its relationship to whisky being super strong. But there are major changes and developments going on the island. Could you tell us a little bit more about what's happening?
Yeah, from when I arrived on the island in 2007, it's night and day. Everyone on the island has some sort of link to the whisky industry. Just for example, all the distilleries, a lot of the distilleries, they're expanding, building warehouses, etc. We had a new distillery, Ardnahoe, built, completed last year. There's possible another distillery going up just beside Lafroig there. So there is a lot of money getting spent on the whisky industry right now. So that is obviously gives you great confidence when going to purchase a cask. If they're investing money, you know that it's it's a sound investment, really.
If there's confidence in it from the people making changes happen, then obviously they've got a great belief in the fact that it will pay off.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think what's great about that is most people who are maybe in Asia or America, they can read about these things online or newspapers, but Scott's from Ireland, Scott's got a connection to the distilleries, and he sees it firsthand of the investment going into whisky distilleries. So it's really nice to get someone on the ground who can actually see this physically happening. And the fact that whisky is just every single year is going up and up and up, the distilleries had to keep up demand. So investing into distilleries only means one thing for Scotch whisky: it's going to keep on going up and keep on going up and keep on going up.
Yeah, I mean, on top of the new distilleries and the warehouses, we've also had multiple. We've had Kilhome, and they've invested heavily in a new visitor centre, as I've been having. So there's just lots of investment right now in Ireland.
So you obviously love whiskey as a thing to drink, as a historic thing, and you live on Islay because that helps with the B&B. Obviously that means that you get lots of footfall for the festival. But Niall, why did you think whiskey was a good thing to invest in for Scott?
Scott just gets it. Scott just completely gets it, and he's such a enjoyable client because Scott understands whiskey, which is not a necessity to be a client of Braeburn, but he's such an active client. Any decision we make is between the two of us because he knows what he's talking about. He knows that whiskey appreciates, he knows what distilleries do well. So from the moment Scott bought his first cask up until his last cask, it's been a very, very active relationship. And for Scott, especially with his plans, which we established at the very beginning, which Scott wants to keep whiskey for his retirement, or he wants to keep whiskey for funds for his future life, this is a perfect investment for Scott. Added into the fact he's from Islay, added into the fact that he knows and trusts whiskey, it's just a full package for Scott.
That makes perfect sense. And with also the fact that, so Scott, you happen to have helped a number of the distilleries with electrical needs because you happen to be an electrician. With that and being able to go into distilleries and build relationships with distilleries, why not just go directly to a distillery and say, "Can I please have that cask"?
Unfortunately, you can't get casks. It's impossible. It's not what you know; it's who you know. And I was very fortunate to come across this. I made the phone call, and what can I say? I've got 5 casks.
I mean, to add to that, Niall, the fact that Braeburn is one of the few companies through whom you can actually invest in casks of whiskey, and one of the best reputed. What is it that you guys offer, as well as just being able to be the facilitator to someone wanting to invest in whiskey?
Yeah, well, to make this more specific towards Scott actually has a Bruichladdich cask which he purchased out with Braeburn Whisky. And Scott, when we first started, because I was very impressed Scott had that cask, because Bruichladdich is one of the best performing distilleries in the world, it's very famous. But he bought that cask young and he's going to sell it old. But what Scott lacked with that cask was advice, and also selling strategies, and also that portfolio management. Now, there is people at Scott who own casks like that from distilleries like Bruichladdich, but what they lack is exit strategies. That's what we really specialise in, giving people advice on when to sell, how to sell, and the most important part, actually selling that cask. So with Scott coming to Braeburn, he's got that full holistic package of having someone like me giving him advice, giving him selling points, and also selling opportunities. So I think what we offer that a lot of companies don't, or not companies, sorry, what a lot of casks don't offer, is that full package of whiskey investing.
Well, that's the sort of the main aim when it's not just a question of protecting your wealth, but making the investment for appreciation purposes. That's the main aim, is to be able to then sell it on and to benefit from the investment that you have made. Now, Scott, you've obviously invested in 5 casks in a short period of time. How have you found the actual process of investing in whiskey with Braeburn?
It's easy. I speak to Niall as I would speak to a relative or friend. It's very, very, very easy. It's so much easier when obviously I have my knowledge of whiskey anyway, so that makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I found it a doddle, and I've even managed to work out online banking for the first time ever as well. So
it's been a journey, Scott. It's been a journey.
We were saying before the actual interview began that you have more in common with Niall as well because of the name of one of your kids.
Yeah, I've got a wee boy called Neil, so Neil Brown.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be.
Now, Neil, is there anything else that, having finally met one another in the sort of visual flesh, is there anything else that you would like to add to or ask Scott while we're here?
Yeah, when can I stay at your B&B, Scott?
Yeah, well, there's plenty of availability at this moment in time due to obvious reasons, but yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I'm looking forward to come to Ireland and meet Scott, because he obviously has the B&B, he's got a lot of nice whisky cask at Braeburn. I think for Scott, because he is working towards a goal with whisky, with retirement and future plans, it's going to be very nice giving Scott a close to that portfolio, and also adding a lot of casks throughout the years. And I'm pretty sure Scott and I
definitely
have a lot of nice memories to talk about in future years with the common kind of ground of whisky.
Yeah, definitely. My plan is to definitely get 1, 2, possibly 3 casks every year. In my personal opinion, I don't feel you can go wrong with an investment in whisky. Obviously, the older it gets, the rarer it gets, the better quality it gets, and yeah, I'm definitely. I hope it is a long friendship.
I think that one of the things about investment in whisky casks at Braeburn is the constant development of that relationship. There's always conversation. You're always free to talk to whoever you are connected to at Braeburn about your investment, because people that invest in whisky love whisky, and people also want to make sure that what they've invested is safe, and that's really clear. That everyone that invests with Braeburn feels both of those things really acutely, which is lovely.
Yeah.
So I won't keep you for any longer. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I'll wave at you all the way up in Islay. And Neil, it's lovely to see you. And I hope that whether it's you two meeting at Braeburn for a dram there, or whether it's meeting on Islay, I hope that you guys enjoy having a dram when you actually are able.
Yeah, thank you
very
guys.
much.
Yes. Nice to
Thanks,
see you,
Neil.
Scott.
Cheers.
This week's musical delight is Nicole Smit, who is a blues-inspired musician who came to Edinburgh via Jakarta, and also then got her inspiration to sing in Sweden. So there's quite a lot of travelling involved in Nicole's musical journey. She started performing professionally at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is where she is now based, and involved in 2 musical outfits primarily, one of which is blues 3-piece, Smitten, and the other which is rhythm and blues band Nicole and the Backup Crew. Hello Nicole, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about you and your music, and what you do when you perform.
What I do when I perform? I just have a lot of fun, mostly. I mean, I would be singing even if no one was watching anyway. So it's kind of nice to get to share it with people, yeah, that's just mostly a lot of joy, really.
And you write and sing as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Great. Where do you draw your inspiration from?
From well, loads of things. I grew up with a lot of the 90s alternative female artists, you know, like Fiona Apple, and my mom listened to a lot of that, Tori Amos and Kate Bush, I guess, which was a bit earlier, and all those things. So that's how I started. That's the kind of music I started listening to. But then obviously getting to know the guys here and all the different blues bands, and so yeah, I get inspiration from them to all the old ones. Nina Simone is a huge inspiration. They're all so sassy. I think that that's quite inspiring, and you're like, they had it so much harder than us too, so you think if they could do it, then there's no excuse why you shouldn't be able to.
Well, you can't say that there's any better reason to be drawn to a certain genre of music than sass and empowerment, can you?
Yes, especially for women, yeah.
So Nicole is going to play us one of her tunes. She's going to play on guitar, which is her newly acquired skill. And Nicole, please feel free to introduce the tune you're going to play.
Okay, like you mentioned, I recently learned guitar, and this is the first 12-bar blues I wrote. It's, I guess it's like an isolation blues. I'm assuming there'll be lots of those coming out. Okay, let's go, girl. Wind is blowing inside my window on this warm and balmy April Wednesday night. I feel alive under the moonlight, learning the blues for the 12th time tonight. What a way to spend the days, making solitary serenades take flight. I hear the names of people unseen, the unloved, untouched, and all the ones in between. Sheltered at home, nowhere to roam, daydreaming fantasies and waiting ever patiently. Lots of fun in a quiet mind that has time to untangle all its binds. So I think of you 2 blocks away. Are you warm and safe and ready for a brand new day?
Another episode of Liquid Gold TV comes to a close. So I'll see you next time for another dram.